All right, it says we're live. I think we're live. Maybe.
Hopefully. I think we just need to get the live show going.
That's right. By the will of Q, I think we're live. All right, and we are live. Welcome to Talking Heads, everyone, your once weekly live show for the latest in beer and tech news. I'm Jeff.
I'm Rhett.
That was almost as delayed as our first show.
Oh, man. It felt like I was going quickly, but I think I'm getting a lot of latency today.
Okay.
So
So you're going to be just a little bit behind? All right.
I guess so.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Glad you could join us here on this Wednesday evening. Hope you're having a great day. We were having a great day until about 5 minutes ago when some kind of solar flare knocked out most of Rhett's electronics. So,
Yeah, all at once.
so well, hopefully he's with us for the rest of the show. Anyway, if you have not seen the show before, it's our once weekly live show. We stream every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific time. We talk beer on the show, we talk tech on the show, and we open some beverages along the way. We do drink alcohol, however, we keep the show family friendly in both language and content as much as possible. If you're drinking along with us, alcoholic or not, let me know in the chat and we'll give some early show shoutouts as we go along. Now, for some longtime viewers, we're actually going to start changing up the format of the show just a little bit. It's still going to be a topical news show, but we're kind of desegmenting it. We're not necessarily going to start with 20 minutes of beer news every week. It started to feel kind of like we were just filling time with that segment, and I don't really want to cost myself viewership if I'm not enjoying the content that's there. And so we're going to start looking specifically for stories that we want to talk about in beer, or maybe just open up different conversations, not necessarily news stories, and more spread them out throughout the entire show rather than devoting literally 25% of the show to beer news. So a little bit of a change. Hopefully it's for the better. And what that means is we get into tech a lot faster. So let me know what you think of that. Rhett, you've already got a drink. That's not fair.
Yes, I do. Sorry. Well, like I said, every solar flare hit my house. I had to pour a drink. So getting hot in here. But yeah, I'm drinking a kind of a spin on a classic, I guess you could say. Just drinking a classic 7 and 7, but with some ginger extract in it. It's really tasty. So
nice. Very nice. I'll get to mine in just a minute. Mine's a little bit special. Let's see. We got Novella Hub, KCBC. This is your brain on hops, double IPA, 8.5%. Reverend, sipping on a peach sour nova from Almanac. Nice. Widmer Drop Top. That's always a great one, Kildy. Yeah. So some good beers there. Very good beers there. I've had the Sour Nova, and I've had obviously I've had the Widmer Drop Top. So those are both solid. My beer for tonight came courtesy of Novella Hub. They're in the chat and over on the Discord. This one I don't know if I'm going to be opening 2 beers tonight. I think I'm just going to stick with the one because this is a big one, and by big I mean it's a freaking large bottle. This is Inbound Brewing. Barrel-aged Russian Imperial Stout. It's a 13%. And it's, I believe, 1 pint 9 ounce. So it's like a pint and a half. So there's a lot of beer here. I almost thought I forgot my knife, so I wasn't going to be able to open the wax top here.
he says he's only opening one tonight, but by the time we get done with this,
We'll see how the show goes.
Probably going to be trying to
We'll see how the show goes.
get into something else. Yeah.
Yeah. My problem is I'm reaching the bottom of a lot of my beer stock, and all that's left at the bottom of my beer stock are really big beers. Because my cupboard for just like standard IPAs and porters and things, it's gone. I have nothing left. So I do have the large batch of beer that Bite My Bits sent over a couple weeks ago, but it's not in a fridge yet because our fridge was delayed by almost 3 weeks in getting here. So it's sitting in a box in the garage right now. And this fridge is completely out of room. So,
Yeah. We saw the video.
yep. All right. By the way, shout out to Bite My Bits, crossing 100,000 subs. Crap, now he's a peer. I have to treat him as such. I don't like that. I don't like that. He's gonna get that plaque on his wall, and just disgusting. Thinking him and I are in the same class. But congratulations, Jason. Way to go. It just took you twice as long as it did me. All right. Ooh, wow. No, I think this is going to do it. This is going to do it for the night. World peas, Jeff, that beer is bigger than my bladder. Surprisingly enough, it doesn't pour like used motor oil. It's actually a little bit lighter body to it.
Yeah, I can see that.
Not much of a head either.
Oops. Hey, somebody's drinking their first, well, maybe not their first, but made their first old fashioned ever.
Ooh. Very nice. Yeah. ID prom?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he blamed me for getting him into old fashions. So he's been, I guess, starting to get into them a little bit and buying some different whiskeys and whatnot. So you're welcome.
Oh, nice. Well, give us a taste of that. Let us know how that is.
Everything is right with the world. That's what it tastes like. It's definitely a lot thicker on your tongue than it is in the glass. Boy, there's a little bit of coffee to that. I don't want to say chocolate. It's a richer flavor, but it's not the traditional like dark chocolate or cacao kind of flavor you get with, a thick hearty stout. It's a little bit, I want to say a little bit fruitier than that. Like think like super dark fruit, like rhubarb, pie cherries, kind of that just rich, really dark fruit taste.
God, it looks good.
Oh, that's good.
It looks so good.
Oh, that's good. Oh man. There's a little bit of vanilla there. Yeah, that's just good. Reverend should have said something in the lawsuit about you getting his plaque. Mohammed wants to know, Craft, are you using Arch Linux? If not, why? Because it's one of dozens of variants and builds and distros of Linux. It's not the only. So I just don't. Let's see. Dave's drinking a Sierra Nevada Torpedo. Excellent. Always love that little tropical IPA. All right. John says, not that there's anything wrong with Rhett, but I thought there was the possibility of a special guest. I ended up not reaching out. I've had kind of a long week and I didn't want to go through planning and all that kind of stuff, but I do have a special guest coming on July 15th. We will have a special live show with a special guest who has not been on the show before. So I'm looking forward to that one. Not that you guys aren't great, Rhett,
No. I get you. Look, the truth is, if Jeff's looking forward to it, we're all looking forward to it too. So
yeah. What in the world happened to your camera feed? All of a sudden you're tiny. Rhett's network bandwidth is low, and so all of a sudden you switch to 360p.
Dude, sorry guys. Yeah, not sure what's going on. I had zero problems all day, and it was like the moment that this started. You can all thank Comcast. Or not.
Yep. Do something with Comcast, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into our first story. And again, we're going to jump right into tech this time around. So I don't know how many people know the long history of Apple and CPU use because it kind of winds through the industry. Obviously, with their Power Mac days, their pre G3 days, they used primarily IBM and IBM based processors. Moving on, Boop My Bits on Cam 100,000, $5 from Big Spoon. I already gave him a shout out, and he's not here to boop. It's no fun if he's not here to boop. So, and I can't virtually boop Rhett's nose because by the time it gets to him, the joke will be gone. So, his ping rate sucks right now, man.
Sorry.
But thank you, Big Spoon, for the $5 donation. And again, Jason, congratulations. Anyway, so early on, they used IBM, or not IBM, but Motorola-based processors. Later on, IBM started producing PowerPC-based processors. Motorola also manufactured some for them, and that was the PowerPC G3, G4, G5. That road didn't really end, but Apple decided that it wasn't the power that they wanted. They weren't getting out of PowerPC anymore, and Intel was kind of coming out with this new thing with dual core and starting to put multiple chips on the same die back in 2006. And in 2005, Apple announced that they're going to start going with Intel-based processors. And that was a pretty major shift for Apple. It was a complete shift in their architecture from a PowerPC base to an x86 64. It changed how Apple used... Jason, $5. I want my play button back. No, it's mine. Some of us earned our 100,000 subscribers. We didn't have to, borrow or steal things from anyone else, Jason. So, we'll. So, sorry about that, but it's mine. I'll send you pictures of it occasionally. And I think Rhett is frozen. This could make for an interesting show.
I'm back.
He's back.
Yeah,
all right.
This is like the worst thing ever. I don't know what the heck is going on. I want to rip my hair out. But yeah, I was sitting here listening to you talk, and then Zoom just closed. Just closed on me. So living the best life over here.
Yep.
Trying not to hurt myself.
Anyway, yeah, PowerPC just was not holding up to what Intel was able to put out in early 2006. And so Apple made the announcement in 2005 that as of 2006, they would start migrating Macs over to Intel. And by 2007, all new Macs would be Intel-based. And like I said, that was pretty big news. I mean, it allowed PC people to come over to the Macintosh side, and it allowed easier development for Mac software because you're no longer writing for a different architecture anymore. It's literally the same architecture with a different OS, different drivers, and that's way easier to achieve than completely different zeros and ones on the back end, and different instruction sets. So that was a big move. Now, during that announcement, Steve Jobs said, getting us over to Intel processors is going to have us set for pretty much the next 10 years. And that announcement was in 2005. And it was kind of an interesting announcement because people went, you're already planning on moving off of Intel? It is kind of the subcontext to that. And yes, actually, in 2005, they were already looking ahead and saying, we're going to move away from Intel. Intel's kind of the stopgap for right now. What they're going to do, and this was probably planned all the way back then, is move over to ARM-based processors. And this is something that Apple has been threatening for probably the last 10 years. It's probably about 2010, 2011, is starting to develop Macintoshes, so actual desktop class hardware that runs on ARM. Well, the wait for that may finally be over, as there's been a number of news outlets coming out with pretty relevant sources that say Apple may be announcing an ARM transition as soon as June 22nd. Not that they're going to release anything, but this could be very similar to the transition with Intel, where they say by 2021 we'll have some ARM products on the market, and by 2022 all new Macs will be ARM based. And it's not that there's no merits to going ARM. It's just a very large transition to put your users through. I mean, it's not an easy thing to do. Now, probably the main reason they're doing it is because they started manufacturing their own ARM processors and designing their own ARM processors for the iPhone and the iPad. And they've seen pretty good performance on those. I mean, you have some iPad processors which are competing in a lot of tasks with Surfaces running i7s and whatnot. So they've closed the gap in performance by a significant margin. And if Apple were to take control of the CPUs, they don't have to wait for Intel to come out with new CPUs to update their hardware anymore. And they are not going to get stuck in this phase or this cycle where Intel literally is just recycling the same chips over and over and over again and calling them something new. And Apple has no new performance to give their users, or in worst case, worse performance on a couple of different CPU cycles that have gone through the mobile chips. So yeah, it's going to be a difficult transition, but this time around, it actually might be easier because they've already established an ARM marketplace with the iPad and the iPhone. Rhett, you're a developer, or kind of.
Not in the Apple space, but
not in the Apple space, but you've written software before and whatnot. Developing for different platforms is not necessarily the easiest thing in the world to do. I think what Apple is trying to do here is put all of their eggs into a single basket, and so you can write one application and have it work on 3 separate platforms.
Right. And that's what Apple does best to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that's why people like developing for Apple in general, because if you're like, for instance, if you're going mobile, like the Apple store and everything, obviously there's a huge, Apple has so much kind of market share there in the mobile space as it is. So then you just kind of put everything on the same platform. You're just making it that much more lucrative to people that want to get involved developing for Apple. It makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. And especially kind of, I don't know if you were saying this earlier because your audio was cutting out, but just with the move that they did buying up Intel's 5G manufacturing, things like that. I mean, it's just it's going to up their game, and I think it is going to be lucrative for a lot of developers. So
yeah, and I think you hit on a key point right there.
Too much there?
Just a little bit towards the end, but I got 99% of what you said, so I think we're good. LOL, tell him to get off dial-up. Yeah. Anyway, you hit on a really good point, and that is the 5G market. Apple has also, for a significant amount of time now, wanted to control the entirety of their device internals end to end. That is design, assembly, manufacturing, fabrication, everything. And that includes possibly, silicon, making their own silicon in their own fabs. They don't want to be at the beck and call of, or on the reliance of, third parties anymore. They're a $1 trillion company. They can do whatever the heck they want to do. They don't need to wait for Intel to come out with a new chip. They don't need to wait for Qualcomm to come out with a new modem, or they don't want to anyway. The thing I think might have gotten lost at a little bit of this is Apple actually purchased Intel's 5G modem business earlier this year. Like I said, Apple has been buying modems from Qualcomm. And again, they've had to wait for Qualcomm to develop modems that they could then integrate into their phones, versus just developing their own modem that works natively with their own hardware, and can introduce power saving functionality with your own hardware. And it's just kind of one of those things. Again, if you own the entire ecosystem and you own every single device that goes into your products, you can tweak things to your heart's content, and you might be able to eke more battery life out than any other, phone that's in production right now. You might be able to eke out more screen time than any phone that's in production right now. You might be able to eke out more speed. And it's just one of those things that if you control everything, you're going to be your own, best asset and your own worst enemy, because it all falls on you. But Apple is a large enough company with enough resources, they can do this. And buying out Intel's 5G modem business, that was one of many, many steps in this process that's leading to Apple going to ARM and developing their own chips for desktop use. Are you frozen, or are you just... Oh, you're blinking. Okay, I got you. So, interesting time for Apple. Interesting time for...
I'm not frozen. I'm not frozen. Not the best call quality, but...
Yeah. Definitely an interesting time for Apple. I'm definitely curious to see what this announcement is, because one of the most recent version of OS X, Catalina, you can now run iPad and iPhone apps natively inside of OS X. And they've been kind of consolidating their development stacks with Metal and all of their different APIs that can integrate with all their different services. And if they're bringing that all literally under one roof, and you write the program once and send it out to 3 different platforms, that's a win for developers. That's a win for users. That's a win for a lot of different aspects of your business. So I see this as a good thing, but there's going to be some growing pains over the next couple of years. And there's going to be some things that don't work. And there's going to be some customers that are ticked off that, I have to transition, my $5,000 software over to the new version because it's ARM only and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. And you're going to piss off some users doing this. But in the end, the users may actually win here. Or Apple will win because they can charge whatever they want for their hardware now, because no one can compete with them on an equal playing field. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do have a couple super chats to get to. Cisco fan, $5. Hello, Craft. I'm hanging out with Jason from Bite My Bits. Well, there's no accounting for taste, but thank you for coming on over to the stream and hanging out with me anyway. Spoon, $5 donation. DDWRT fan here, also hanging out with Bite My Bits. Yeah, I knew you did. Yeah. Questionable commands. Open Sense user extends pinky and sips beer, not associating with such ruffians. You, I like. Jason, $5. Next time, just use Sweater Vest voice and use a sock puppet for the video. See how we'll just pipe you in with voice only, Rhett.
Yeah, true. Why not? May as well. Just put a stupid shirt on it, and it's good to go. Mm-hmm. Or I guess a sweater vest, even though I've never worn a sweater vest in my life.
I can't say that I haven't. Because I totally have. I don't think I currently own one, so.
I believe it.
People are taking donations to get you an AOL floppy disk so you can upgrade your internet.
Thank you. Y'all saw me last week and there was no problem. Dang it.
Yeah. This is what happens to John every week, and he always blames me. And what's funny enough is John was supposed to be on this week, and you're filling in, so you're getting throttled instead.
Oh my God.
That's exactly what it is. This is John throttling you.
Dude, here's the thing.
As retaliation.
Yeah, man, because you look at the death of net neutrality and how they can kind of selectively throttle you based on like certain routing was going to have a partner. And when they saw that it was me signing up, they throttled me.
Nice. And American Cosworth, I just replied to him in chat, but he says, Kraft, I have some beer coming for you. It's the F COVID beer from Ale Asylum in Madison, Wisconsin. So I'm looking forward to getting that one because I was wanting to get a hold of that. So, dude, thank you very much. That is freaking awesome. All right. Moving on to kind of the top story of the week here. By the way, beer news ends at 8:26. Oh, wait, that was Apple. I don't have to do that anymore.
No. It's a new
All
world.
right. Kind of the top story for the week, and this has been going on for 5 or 6 days now. I'm definitely not the first one to talk about this, and definitely won't be the last because we're expecting an announcement here soon, especially with the number of very, very high-level leaks that we're getting on this product stack. But video cards and chip hell were the two first to break the story of RTX 3080 new cooler design being pictured, along with a little bit of a shot of the PCB. Well, not much. You see the PCI Express fingers, and that's about it. But it's to say it's radically different than anything we've ever seen from Nvidia before is kind of putting it lightly. For all those that hated the XFX carbon fiber shroud, you're probably not going to be a fan of this one. And you're also probably not going to be a fan of, well, the new fan design. It's kind of funky, where it sucks in air from the bottom and has a second fan up on the opposite side on the top of the PCB to blow air towards the top of your case. I kind of like the design and I like the theory of it. Here's a really good picture right here of it. That you're sucking in air from the bottom here, blowing it across the top of your card, and then venting it out the top, which presumably goes to your standard PC case exhaust fan that sits there. So not a terrible way to design a card, especially if they have the room, seeing as how the PCB probably shrank quite significantly compared to the current generation of cards. Now, there were a lot of questions about whether or not this leak was legit, because, again, it's kind of radically different than anything NVIDIA has done before. Not that we haven't seen a radical design before. You know, they obviously switched from the Fermi and previous graphics cards with all the literal graphics slapped on top of them, you know, the GTX 2060 and whatnot with just the standard blower cooler, to all of a sudden in the 700 series they went to kind of the aluminum and angular design that we kind of know today. And that's just seen various iterations that go down the line. But this is definitely different, to say the least. And I'm sorry for all the dead air tonight.
I'm trying not to talk too much, just in case, you know, because I've been sensing a lot of delay and also a lot of, you know, kind of dropped voice data and stuff. So
yeah, I'm trying to give you room to jump in there if you'd like, and take a drink of beer every once in a while. So feel free to jump in, and I'll stop talking if I hear you. So
sure. I have nothing else to add too much other than to say, you know, I think everybody in all the comment threads everywhere this story has been dropped saying the same thing. It's like, oh man, and it's only going to cost me, you know, a down payment on my house or a second mortgage or whatever. So I didn't see it in this story, but I was reading earlier that it was looking like it was going to be like $1,200 or something like this when this dropped. Or am I on the wrong story? No, I'm not.
No, you're not.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think all the leaks on pricing are going to be speculative at best at this point. There hasn't been a great history of leaking information on prices prior to NVIDIA launches before. Right. But, you know, with as many leaks as we're getting right now, who knows? But one thing's for sure, NVIDIA is saying that, or someone is saying that the new graphics card cooler costs $150 to manufacture. I'm just going to go out on a limb and call BS. I'm going to call straight up BS that costs $150. Mainly because I've seen some pretty beefy heatsink solutions. You know, the Noctua NHD15, the Assassin 3, the Cooler Master Dark Rock Pro 4. You know, go down the list of these really, really large air cooler solutions, which have these massive heat pipes, a lot of aluminum fins, massive contact plates, especially when you get into the Threadripper designed ones, where it's literally just like a copper block that sits down on top of your CPU there. Those are selling for $100, and those companies are making a profit at that margin. Now, there's a little bit more componentry here, but probably less metal. I mean, there's 2 fans instead of 1. Although the NHD15 comes with 2, the Assassin 3 comes with 2, the Dark Arc Pro 4 comes with 2. So there's 2 fans. There's probably heat pipes. There's probably aluminum fins. I don't know where they're getting $150 from. I literally can't fathom that it costs $150. A couple of couple of super chats. Spoon again, $5. Donation to upgrade potato.com or potato cam, I guess. So yeah, Rhett, we got to get you on something better than a potato. And then Richard, $10 donation. You do a good job, Jeff. It's appreciated. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, actually, I was talking to Rhett last week after the stream, talking about how I need to get him a little bit better camera if we're going to do more remote stuff, and I just never connected with him this week. So.
Well, I thought I was going to have my camera fixed, and I popped it apart and I soldered it, but the solder that I have is like really, really low grade stuff. And I wonder if that had some sort of an impact. You know, it's like not, you know, theoretically, I don't know how it is, I guess, with the work I was doing, but you know, my experience is mostly music equipment and things like that. You want the least amount of lead in your solder possible, and the only stuff I have around is like just the lowest base, highest like lead solder. Yeah, you know. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it, or just maybe the camera might be done and I just am unwilling to let it go.
Yeah. My camera, we have the same 4K action cam. It's the 8-man action cam. It's the $60 package you can get on Amazon, and it's a pretty decent quality camera. But mine, when I was shooting the time lapse for building my studio here when I moved into the new house in December, you could literally watch pixels die in that time lapse. On the sensor. So it's like, it started with like 1 or 2. And by the end of those 2 or 3 days of time lapse, I had like 70 pixels that were just shot on that camera. You could watch them die as the time lapse goes along. It's pretty funny.
I mean, it kind of goes to show you, you know, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
I jumped on the bandwagon and it did everything that I wanted it to do when I bought it. You know, it was worth $60. It has all the best little attachments and knickknacks come with it. But yeah, if it's done, it's done. You know, if I get another action camera, I'll spring for a GoPro.
So Blue Mango says, did you try turning it off and on again? Yes, actually, he rebooted twice before we started the show tonight. And so I was talking about Rhett's solar flares that were shooting up. So we got connected, we got talking for a couple of minutes, and his phone literally bricked itself, where he could still hear the Zoom call going on, but his screen had hard locked. It was just on a black screen, wouldn't respond to touch, wouldn't respond to holding power button, anything that he tried. I finally kicked him out of the Zoom call, and his phone kind of reset itself like 5 minutes later. His computer hard locked on him, so he had to reboot that twice. Yeah, this was all like 7 minutes leading up to the live show. And then probably the best comment is Jason, $2. Talking to Rhett last week equals conversation still loading.
Yeah. I pride myself on not being that guy in the Zoom call, and here I am.
Yeah.
I did 2 other Zoom calls today. No problem. But there's just something. It's the solar flares, man.
Meanwhile, I'm that other guy in the Zoom call that has a mirrorless SLR and an HDMI capture card for all of my Zoom calls. So I've got the blurry background and the proper lighting and everything else, and I look like $1,000,000 all the time. And then there's everyone else like hunched over a laptop on their couch,
or just like their phone, and they're just like,
yeah,
hey, how are
yeah,
you?
yeah. We have one guy all the time who walks out to his car because he doesn't get service in his house and he only has a cell phone, and so he walks out to his car, puts his cell phone in the holder, and he sits out there and talks to us in portrait mode on his phone, but it's like kind of looking up his nose and his steering wheel's in the way.
Yeah.
Cisco fan, upgrade Rhett to 3 T1 circuits. Are we going to shotgun those together and get 4.5 megs for him? Is that what we're going to do there? Buy my bits, $2. Maybe you can mail him a USB with his. Maybe he can mail you a USB with his part of the show.
Oh yeah. No,
sorry, that one. I thought I was having an aneurysm there because you were making a joke by not including all the characters in that super chat, and my brain couldn't handle it.
It's too clever. Yeah, I do a lot of podcasting, and that's what we do, baby. We Zoom call, but we record ourselves, and then we combine it. No call quality issues to take into account. So we can do it. You know what? I'll start recording right now. Just kidding.
So yeah, Nvidia, that cooler is not going to cost you $150. You're not even going to sell that cooler for $150 because you're not going to sell it as an add-on part. I don't know where that number is coming from. It doesn't make sense from a manufacturing standpoint. I don't know. Who knows?
What if you had to guess? Just going off what I was talking about earlier. What would you speculate the cost of this to be when it drops?
If we're talking about, well, good segue into specs here because we do have some early specs.
Is that the next?
So first off, we do have some better images of the heatsink itself. Someone actually drew them up and rendered them, and they look fantastic. And then we have some pictures of the bottom side, and again, it's just a copper cold plate, some aluminum fins, and not a lot else. I mean, this doesn't cost $150. It flat out doesn't.
It's made out of platinum.
Yeah, I mean there's some heat pipes underneath there. There's kind of an aluminum substrate to hold it all together, but I don't get it. But there were two different news outlets that did report spec leaks in the last couple of days. Tom's Hardware is one, and eTechnics is another. And they both agree that the top end Nvidia flagship Ampere card is probably going to have 24 gigabytes of GDDR6X memory, which is a crap ton. And not only that, 384-bit memory bus and a 350-watt TDP. So it's going to be a powerful boy and a little bit of a toasty boy. And I see why they completely redesigned their cooler for kind of a push-pull and let's get the air out of the case, but also have it kind of be like a hybrid open air kind of cooler design. I'm looking forward to seeing how it performs. I really am. But there's two other graphics cards listed in here. So we think that they're all going to be based on the GA102, and it's either going to be the 70, the 80, the 90, or the 70, the 80, and the 80 Ti, or the 80, the 80 Ti, and the 80 Super Ti Titan. I don't know. But we have leaks for three different cards. We don't have any CUDA core counts. We don't have any RTX core counts, Tensor core counts, anything like that. All we know or think we know is the memory amounts and the memory interface. And on the second tier 102, it's 11 gigs of GDDR6X and 352 megabit memory bus. And on the lower tier, it's 10 gigabytes and 320 bit. And like I said, both Tom's Hardware and eTechnics agree on all of those specs right there. However, only the top tier RTX 3090 will have an NVLink, So Nvidia once again, doubling down on multi GPU support is dead. Don't even try, because you can't anymore. As far as performance, who knows? Again, you can make some educated guesses if we had CUDA core counts or even some other core counts. But until we know some of the architectural changes that have been made, I'm assuming they're going to be moving to 7 nanometer. At least that's what I've heard. I guess TSMC was slated to start fabbing some NVIDIA chips around this time. So I can't imagine that they're... or TSMC? I think it was TSMC. I can't imagine that they're switching over from AMD 7 nanometer and going back to do 14 nanometer or 12 nanometer for NVIDIA. So yeah, I guess we'll find out soon-ish TM.
Yeah, they say September? Mm-hmm. Or yeah, okay.
I like the artisanal heatsink comments that I'm getting. Handcrafted artisanal heatsink made in Seattle, barrel aged.
I'm loving all the attention that my video feed's getting in the Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah, you done screwed it up when it's the only focus of the dang chat in the Discord there.
Yeah. Carl says 700 watts of GPU would be a bit crazy in one case, though. I have 900 watts of GPU in the case, like literally right below me here. I have my AMD EPYC build, 32 core, 64 thread with 3 GTX 690s installed. And I'm hoping to get back to that later this week and actually get like a test case built as far as 6 gamers, one CPU kind of build, but in a remote gaming fashion. So I might have a LAN party with you, Rhett, and John and Steve, and have you guys just like log into my remote game server, and we'll LAN party on a single box.
Yeah, what are we playing?
I don't know yet, but
Quake 3?
Gotta be.
Maybe that's too obvious. Maybe we got to go with something a little bit more modern.
Yeah. Halo 3. There we go.
Ooh, I'd play some Halo.
Yeah. I'd be down for that one.
I'd probably hurt y'all, but no big deal.
Were you even born when the Xbox came out?
You shut your mouth.
Oh, it's just too easy. It's just too easy.
I waited in line for Halo 2 is my first like midnight release. Actually, my only midnight release game that I ever did. I went and waited in line at midnight in front of I don't think it was GameStop at the time. I think the store that was still around was Babbage's. If you remember Babbage's.
Don't remember Babbage's. I didn't grow up in this area. So if you're talking Halo 2 days, I would have been significantly south of here.
Oh, that's a bummer. Yeah, so...
we had Electronics Boutique. We had Software Etc. We had Game Crazy was a local franchise.
Yeah, Game Crazy. We had that too. Yeah, Babbage's, I think was like kind of part of like a weird chain that also included like a game store called like Planet X or something. If you'd ever been to a Planet X. No? All right. Anyway, Electronics Boutique eventually became EB Games. They became GameStop and bought out all the game stores in town, including Babbage's, which I don't know, Center Mall. But anyway, I waited there for it. So.
Yep. So yeah, what else we got here? Oh damn, we had a Babbage's in the mall here for a short time. Then it went to EB Games, then a GameStop. Yeah. The game store that I grew up with was Software Etc. In Valley River Center down in Eugene. And we also had an Egbert Software, which later became Newegg. If I remember my history properly.
Interesting.
Let's see.
Are you Googling your history?
Yeah. Not coming up with any hits for that.
So you all, let this be a good parallel for current events. You know, if there is something in history that you're unsure about, you can Google it and it'll tell you.
You don't have to just double down on not knowing. You can you can look things up. You have the entirety of human knowledge at your fingertips. There's no excuse for being wrong. None. You all own this. Stop with this. Can't find any info.
A fun week on Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh, you like that? Let me tell you that let me Google that for you has never been more relevant.
Yeah. Looking forward to when the host can finally go back to Jeff's house. So am I. I miss my friends. Yeah. I miss you guys.
I am too.
And I don't just say that
with my wife and
yeah.
Right. Yeah. I was just talking with my wife and, you know, the conversation was just about doing the show or whatever. And yeah, she said, have fun or something like that. I don't know exactly. But then I was thinking like, well, it's just not the same as like going there, you know, being in the studio. I just refilled
my pint. This bottle is still not empty. What? Yeah. I was halfway through this pint. I just topped it off. I think it's close. Oh yeah. Okay. Just a trickle left. Yeah. So I was halfway done with this pint. Oh man. And now I have another beer.
It ain't even 9 o'clock yet, and I'm moving on to my third drink. Mm. Hey, welcome to life in quarantine, y'all. I don't have to drive home. I am home.
That is the plus side to these Zoom meetings.
I'll drive there anyway, but no, just kidding. Yeah. Very helpful.
The opinions of Rhett is awesome do not reflect that of Craft Computing LLC or its affiliated channels.
No,
and remember, don't drink and drive.
Facebook's hard too. Oh, is that what we're not talking about? Facebook. We're talking about drinking.
Right. Yeah, idiocracy draws closer to being true every day. Can we just end it, go straight to the end game, and elect Terry Crews? Terry Crews for president. There we go.
Terry Crews or Ted Cruz?
Terry
Who
Crews.
the hell's Terry Crews?
Terry Crews. Come on.
Oh, sorry. I was like, oh my God, Ted Cruz? Yeah. Why? No, Terry Crews, 100%. I really liked him.
Terry Crews for president.
I'm embarrassed that I was like, wait, who are you talking about?
Ted Cruz.
That's just where my mind is, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, I'm not getting political here. Elect Terry Crews.
Yeah, it's hard to pump the brakes, you know, when you're going 65 miles an hour. So,
yep. Tell that to Ted Cruz.
You mean the Zodiac Killer?
Right. Moving right along here. Jeff is going for number 3 tonight, and I just cracked my second as well. No, Rhett's going for number 3 tonight.
Yeah. That's me.
Yeah, Novella Hub says it's a 750 ml bottle. So yeah, it's a 1 pint 9 ounce.
That is a handle. Yep. Or a handle. God, why do I do this every time? A fifth.
Demusant 10 says, what beer are you drinking again, Jeff? It is Inbound Brewing Company Barrel Aged Russian Imperial Stout. It is a 13%, and it is all of that. And it's delicious.
It looks delicious.
Yes.
That's why I miss being at Craft Studios the most.
I do have some of the best stuff.
It's that little fridge right over there in the corner.
It's a lot of money in that fridge.
Makes a man weepy just remembering.
That's right. World Peace says, don't drink and drive. You might spill your drink, and that's alcohol abuse.
Yeah, fair enough.
The commentary by World Peace do not represent those of Craft Computing, LLC, or its affiliated channels. Don't drink and drive. All right, moving right along here. Boy, there was a story posted last week that got fanboys of both sides into a bit of a tizzy. Whether you're Team Blue or you bleed red, there was a story that kind of fueled a little bit of that fanboy fire, and that was AMD motherboards. Are they killing your CPUs? I'm seeing 1.45 volts on my Ryzen chip. I'm not overclocking and whatnot. And yeah, mine's boosting to 75 megahertz faster than it should be. And everyone's going, all this extra power and thermal and everything else is going to melt down your CPU and degrade its lifespan. And AMD's just going for the, disposable, replaceable CPU, and they're going to make you buy a new one in 3 years. Or at least that's what Tom's Hardware would have you believe if you read your article. Unbeknownst to you, your motherboard may be silently killing your Ryzen processor faster than expected. Hardware Info introduced a new feature today that vendors say exposes some of the X570 motherboard vendors are clandestinely misreporting key measurements of AMD Ryzen processors, thus boosting performance. Now, the spec they're looking at is CPU power reporting deviation. And while manufacturers of motherboards are kind of misrepresenting the true power use of CPUs, I will say the reported metrics that you're seeing in Hardware Info up to the latest version, when you look at the total wattage draw of your CPU, was likely being misreported. Not by much, by a couple of watts, but likely being a couple of watts low. Now, what the power allocation metric reports now is the actual power draw versus the reported power draw, or the percentage of which your actual or your reported power draw is to the actual. So it displays it as a percentage. Follow me here. So if you're reported to be X and your actual power draw is Y, it shows you the percentage of X to Y. So if you're reporting 75 watts and you're actually drawing 79 watts, it's going to say, hey, you're actually reporting 97%. There you go. So if you're drawing 75 watts and it's actually drawing 75 watts and it's reporting 75 watts, it's going to show 100% there, and that's normal. But everybody calm down here. Because number one, a couple of watts is not going to make or break your CPU. It's not going to make it die prematurely. It's not going to heat soak it. If this were an Intel chip, I may say differently because of the heat sinks that they've included in Intel CPUs in the past. Namely either none or that stupid aluminum heatsink, which couldn't even boost an i3 8100 to full tilt for the required time frame. Versus AMD, even the Stealth is doing a pretty decent job at keeping their 65 watt chips cool. And then you go up to the Spire and it's no contest. You've got a copper slug and a much taller cooler and better fans and everything else that goes along with that. But Tom's Hardware sent off alarm bells throughout a good chunk of the community. And, a lot of people kind of ran with their report going, boo AMD, yay Intel for actually reporting the proper things. But hold on, AMD wasn't involved in this, and neither was Intel. This is actually the motherboard manufacturers eking a little bit more performance out of your Ryzen processor by lying to the processor to get it to boost a little higher. And this is something that's been seen for years. I reviewed a BioStar motherboard when I was working for Modders Inc. A couple of years ago. And that motherboard, it was a, what was it? A B360, I think it was. It was a Coffee Lake B360 motherboard, I'm pretty sure. And it was the Racing 5 motherboard. And I fired the system up and I turned on, basically boosted the memory to 2666. Oh, come on. What's the name of that? Whatever. Turned on the memory boost and got up to 2666, booted into the OS, and my memory was reporting at 2720 or something like that. And I went, well, that's odd for a non-overclockable system and what should have a max of 2666 megahertz. Ran Cinebench and the test crashed. I went, well, that's not right. So I rebooted, tried it again, tried a new Windows install, tried a couple of different things. And every time I turned on memory boost, why can't I not remember the acronym for that? XMP. Every time I turned on XMP and boosted my memory from 2133 to 2666, my memory would boost to about 2720 and Cinebench would hardlock. And I couldn't get through a test. I couldn't get through my benchmarks. I finally figured out the reason for that. And it's because the base clock on the motherboard had been set to 103 megahertz. So it was overclocking by 3% every single metric of the CPU and the bus speeds from the factory. And 103 is a pretty hefty overclock for a bus overclock anymore. That's really not the way people overclock CPUs anymore. I mean, in the x58 days, it was totally the way to go. I remember running 132, but that was a different time. That was a different architecture. Kind of. Because it's still Intel, and they still kind of sat on there. Anyway, so I remember giving that motherboard a negative review because the default setting was to overclock all of your motherboard interconnects by 3%. And that doesn't sound like a huge margin, but it was enough to make Cinebench crash with my test bench. And BioStar wasn't transparent about that. And there was really no way to turn it off. Because it was just enabled by default. But these are tricks that have been used by motherboard manufacturers for generations. I mean, Asus got in trouble for doing the all-core turbo, instead of the single-core turbo to like 4.2, they would boost all cores to 4.2 when they weren't supposed to. And people freaked out about that because it's like, oh, you're drawing an extra 7 watts on my CPU and you shouldn't, or some people were thrilled because they got an extra 300 megahertz across all cores. That this has been done for years and years and years and years and years. And this is just another one of those things that it's a motherboard manufacturer trying to boost performance up to a level that makes them a little bit more competitive. And none other than Dr. Ian Cuttress did a phenomenal breakdown on AnandTech of, number one, why this won't kill your CPU, and breaks down the actual thermal mechanics of silicon and electromagnetic breakdown. And then says, how do I know if I'm affected? If your power reporting deviation is reporting less than 100% and your CPU is at 100% load, your motherboard is lying to you. Now, what are my options? If your motherboard is using your processor, but you're happy with the thermal performance of your cooler and the power draw at the wall, then enjoy the extra performance. It's only 75 megahertz after all.
Yeah.
And if you are upset about it, call your manufacturer, get a BIOS update, get whatever else to turn the feature off. But really, this is no different than what's been done for years and years and years. And it's not even like a transparency thing because the AMD Boost spec is not a spec that you have to follow. It's a recommended specification that you can skirt around. You can boost higher if you want. And every AMD CPU is unlocked. And so motherboard manufacturers can set overclocks by default. Now, not a lot of them do, but it's certainly an option. Rhett looks mad frustrated.
I just keep getting notifications on my screen that my connection's unstable. So,
yep.
I I was listening to Craft on podcast form this week, and I just keep thinking how stupid it's gonna sound this week. But that's a small consideration. I ought to just get with it. But I don't want to detract too much when Jeff's on a roll. So
Yep. Yeah. Let's see. Anyone else waiting for all the Intel shills to read that XMP is an Intel thing? Yeah, XMP is an Intel thing, and then AMD tries to implement it themselves by calling it AXMP. And that's really the only kind of similar thing, is that they try to take the Intel spec and apply it to themselves, but it's all memory timing and frequency and power load and everything else is all the specs that they're trying to read. So while it's technically an Intel spec, so is AMD 64 as a base computing operation, and so is Intel x86. Your Windows installation that you're using right now is AMD 64 architecture. AMD patented that architecture. And Intel's Itanium sucked, and so Intel had to bite the bullet and go, well, we might as well go over and use what they're using. Just like AMD licensed x86 architecture from Intel. They're literally paying each other to run each other's architecture right now. So. Oh my God, that beer's getting better as it warms up. Oh, so good. I had a BioStar back in the mid-2000s, and it was borderline horrible stability-wise. I've had a couple of BioStar motherboards dating back into the late 90s and early 2000s, and I agree. They were always finicky. We'll put it that way. And the couple I've tested recently, they're finicky as well. Rom says, I had an ECS motherboard on Athlon 2. I did get the fire.
People, one of the questions I had when I was kind of reading the breakdown of this whole thing is people, the sort of the breakdown of their CPUs is something that they were worried about when they're trying to kind of benchmark their system and all this sort of stuff. But like when people were sort of looking at the numbers that were being reported on the benchmarking and stuff like that, like what is the timeline to complete failure? Obviously this isn't a big problem for most people as the story sort of pans out, right? Are looking at, and it's a real concern. What's the timeline on that? Because I feel like most people, the CPUs I'm buying, I'm probably going to get my money's worth before it breaks down. So I don't know. That was my big question, kind of getting to the bottom of the story. Did I lose you?
No, I got you. So for those who couldn't hear him, it was, what's the timeline on the CPU breaking down to the point where it will degrade performance or degrade to a point where it's useless to the end user? I think was your question. And
yeah,
the answer is it won't. Is the really short answer.
Okay.
As long as your thermal performance is adequate, and by that I mean you have an adequate cooler installed, which every single AMD CPU comes with an adequate cooler. It's adequate to run it at stock speeds out of the box, even if it's boosting 75 megahertz beyond what AMD says the boost clock is. They are adequate. They're not the best, but they're good enough to keep the CPUs within the range they're supposed to be running in. Now, if you were running a 3900X on a Wraith Stealth, a 95 watt TDP chip on a 65 watt processor, you're going to have problems. But there's also overheat, safeties and protocols and things like that the chip goes into to downclock itself to avoid damaging itself. It's not like the chips will intentionally damage themselves. And it's not like the motherboard manufacturers are going to intentionally damage your chips. It's just... Linus actually did a great video of GPU degradation. Of, man, this GPU has been pushed hard for the last 5 years and it runs a lot slower than it used to. And I think he tested like a GTX 580, so a Fermi 580 card, and he had a Fermi 580 EVGA that had been used in a system for 5 years and gamed on like daily for a couple of hours a day. And he had EVGA send him a matching card, brand new, still in shrink wrap, that had been sitting on a shelf for the same amount of time. And he put them into a system, and they were identical. Identical boost performance, identical frame rate performance, no degradation whatsoever. It's not a thing. It's really not a thing. You can have other problems. You can have, failing memory. You can have, chips that go bad. And chips do go bad, but not like in a slow way. It turns on or it stops. Or your GPU memory works, or you get, graphical artifacting all over your screen. It's not like this slow, like, oh man, I think I'm having a little problem here. No, it's either a problem or it's not a problem. That's how these things work. The amount of math involved in the zeros and ones that are flying across your PCI Express bus, trust me, if you flip more than 1% of them, you're effed. So it's always funny hearing it used to boost to 1680, but now I'm only getting like 1520. No, you need to clean your fans. That's what that means.
Yeah. Well, all the stories obviously break down to it being hysteria, but it's just one of those things like, okay, if you look at the math or whatever, you add it up, no, clearly not. When a Nantech is getting into, the freaking atomical structure of your chips to define like what sort of breakdown that you could be getting, obviously you're kind of nitpicking a little bit.
Right. Aside from physical damage or thermal limits being disabled and the CPU cooking itself, the main way for a modern processor to become non-functional is through electromigration. This is the act of electrons making their way through the wires on a processor and ever so slightly bumping into the silicon and other elements, in that the wire to move them out of the crystal lattice. It is in itself a fairly rare event, how long your wires have been in your house, for example. However, at the small scale, it can affect and change how a processor works. But, and again, that's directly from Dr. Ian Cuttress, who, if someone says something on a matter, I believe him. If he writes it down and it's published, it's accurate. You don't have to question it. It's just take it as gospel. And I don't say that about very many writers, but he's one of them. So at the subatomic level, you can have electron migration and degrade the quality of the wire substrate, and contact the silicon and possibly damage that in some way outside of thermal or electrical direct damage. But it still doesn't matter. So, yeah.
Good to know. Put it to bed. There we go.
My friend's mom has a PC from the late 90s running XP, and it still works. I know a couple people who are still running, decade plus old machines. So. All right, on to some ransomware news. By the way, what are you drinking now, Rhett? Because you said you're on your third beer, but you didn't even announce the first one. So what have you been drinking tonight?
Look, last week...
Or do you want to announce it?
I took a little bit of flack for drinking Red Can. No, I'll announce it. I got no shame, man. I'm the guy that's drank Rainier on the show before.
That's right. You don't have any shame, so.
Yeah. Look, I love good beer just as much as anybody on this show. Dang it. Gosh darn it. But I'm drinking Hop Valley's Red Can. It's kind of their go-to light beer that they've started producing. It's cheap. It's sold at the market by my house for like $10 for an 18 rack. It's hard for me to get to the grocery store or any sort of specialty store anymore because, you know, the pandemic.
Right.
So this is what I've ended up picking up. I'm surprised at how tasty it is for being a light beer. I think it's only like 4.5%. I don't know where I got that from. Yeah, it's 4.1%, but it tastes like a very bready. It's not as like full bodied as a Hefeweizen by any means, but it tastes fuller bodied and breadier than like a full on Coors Original or something like that.
Yeah.
You know. So I've been enjoying these. I mean, it's got a super bready taste, which I really enjoy. It's not too hoppy. And they're super cheap, and it's Hop Valley, you know, and I guess that they were bought out by Anheuser-Busch. I think we talked about that on the show before, but like whatever, man. It's, you know, you still got locals down the road from us brewing this stuff. So they're brewing Budweiser, which, you know, I don't drink Budweiser, but I'll drink Red Can. So here we are.
Demusant10 says, Craft, FYI, Ian Cuttress is Tech Potato on YouTube. Yes, I know. He actually told me his YouTube channel name back in January and was asking me and Epos Vox for some tips on getting online. And Epos and I told him the same thing. Just point the camera at yourself and start going, man, and find your voice, because you're an excellent writer, and you'll find your voice. And I've actually really been digging his early stuff on YouTube, so I hope he keeps going with it, because you know, writing, I don't want to say it's a dying medium, but as far as news delivery, it's kind of a dying medium. Most people, and this has been since the early 2000s, that a lot of people get their news on TV. You know, they don't sit down and read the paper anymore. They get their news on the TV. No one, or I shouldn't say no one, gets on to like ESPN.com. They watch ESPN, but more people watch ESPN than get onto ESPN.com. Same with Fox Sports.
Portland Police Bureau gets on ESPN.com. Did you see that?
I did see that.
Sorry.
Right next to their paycheck login.
Yeah.
So anyway, you realize you can drag that image out, and you realize you can drag that image out and retweet that image alone, rather than just taking a picture with your camera phone, right?
I dude, that hurt me. Well, it looks like what they did is they screen capped it, and then they didn't crop it or anything like that. That's what it looked like they did. You know, it's like I screen cap all the time, but then you crop it. You crop the dang image. You don't want anybody seeing, you know, what your crazy
Internet Explorer, for
freaking
God's sakes.
taskbar. Oh, Jesus. I know. It's just so funny to me. It's like it was like in this order: ESPN, Facebook, Fox News, golf, paycheck.
Yeah, paycheck.
Like,
that was the fun one.
It's like, what are you guys doing over there? Why would you share this picture? And then they had the comics sans gun was in there. Oh God, did I drop the call?
Nope. No. Yeah. You did for a second.
But
I think you're back.
But yeah, writing, dying medium. Unless you're me, I subscribe to local newspapers, digital only, baby. Not the Statesman Journal. No, sir. Salem Reporter, headed up by a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Les Seitz, I think, who you all can see in the documentary Wild Wild Country. He was an investigative reporter for the Oregonian, and now he heads up the newspaper that I subscribe to. I don't know. I had to get the plug. Well, like kids. So I can hear Jeff typing, but no words.
Sorry, I had to type that one in. Anyway, moving on to some ransomware news. Honda ran into a bit of an issue this week, which took down a large chunk of their global infrastructure. So they confirmed a ransomware cyber attack that happened at some of their data centers and brought, quote, parts of their global operation to a standstill. This at the time of reporting was affecting customer. I just tried to say Honda and customer and service all at the same time. Honda customer service and Honda financial services were down entirely, and a lot of their other departments within their organization were also having some issues. So Honda is one of the world's largest vehicle manufacturers in the world, employing more than 200,000 staff with factories in the UK, North America, and Europe. And they said that their factory should be back online as early as today, and that was as of yesterday. But yeah, it brought a lot of their factory lines to a halt. It crashed their customer service support network. It crashed their financial support network. There was a lot of damage done there, and I can tell you, someone who's dealt with ransomware on a decently sized level before, it's never fun. And I hope you had good backups. And also make sure to do a postmortem and make sure that no data actually left your network. Now, again, there's probably smarter people than me working at Honda in their IT security department, but some ransomware attacks, while they're encrypting, will also send that data off to be looked at later. So fun times for Honda. I'm glad I don't work for Honda.
Yeah.
Honda's not alone. I know a couple other suppliers are down as well, but they won't reveal it till their quarterlies. Let's see. Have you ever used the Brave browser?
I have not, but for whatever reason, since the Google story broke, privacy has been sort of at the top of my, Google News algorithm and all this sort of stuff. And people before the story broke were recommending Brave browser and a number of other things. And until the true private, there's nothing there to be super excited about. So when I saw this story break, I was like, that's kind of crazy that I've probably really only read about this browser in the last 2 weeks.
And all of a sudden it's in the news for doing things it shouldn't have been doing.
For redirecting users.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Brave is a browser.
And I wonder how much of this is. Sorry,
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was just gonna say, I wonder how much of this is sort of caused by the influx of users from a lot of these sort of algorithmic recommendations and things that I've even been getting.
Right.
And all this, you get all these new users that are coming on, and then a bunch of them realize, hey, shady.
Right. So for those who don't know, the Brave browser is a privacy-focused browser. It is a web browser just like Chrome or Firefox or Edge or Internet Explorer or whatever you like. That basically promises to not monitor your activity. They're not collecting data, they're not collecting analytics, and they're trying to prevent websites you visit from collecting those analytics as well. So you don't leave any fingerprints or cookies or thumbnails or whatever else while you're browsing around the World Wide Web. However, they've come under a little bit of fire recently because, obviously Rhett mentioned the Google lawsuit with Google being sued for potentially tracking incognito browsing. Brave is now under fire for redirecting traffic, not necessarily to a different site, but automatically forwarding you to a crypto wallet and transfer site using their own affiliate code. And so Cryptonator Leet, I love that name, on Twitter said, so when you're using the Brave browser and type in Binance.us, you end up being redirected to Binance.us/en ? Reference equals 35089877. I see what you did there, mates. That is their affiliate link code, and they get a small percentage of whatever transaction you make with whatever cryptocurrency you happen to be exchanging at Binance. And for those who don't know, that's ethically wrong.
Yeah.
Especially a browser that was supposed to be focused 100% on user privacy, invading your privacy by redirecting you with their own affiliate code. Because affiliate links are also tracked. And it tracks who visits them, when they visit them, why they visited them, what they did on the site. The analytics that I get from Amazon are startling. As far as what you all are buying with my affiliate link. What's really fun is since the pandemic, people have been buying groceries with my affiliate links, so I get affiliate links for like bananas. That's been a lot of fun. But so Brendan over at Brave said, we made a mistake. We're correcting. Brave default autocompletes verbatim Binance.us in the address bar to add affiliate code. We are a Binance affiliate. We refer users via opt-in trading widget on the new tab page, but autocomplete should not add any code. So they're saying it was kind of unintentional, but also kind of intentional. Disabling autocomplete will solve the problem. But the funny thing is that autocomplete is a default. That their affiliate code is a default when you visit that exact crypto trading site. So who knows? Who knows if they're telling the truth? Who knows if it was intentional, if they just use their autocomplete system to say, hey, can we send people to the affiliate store and start making money off people just using our browser and using that link? But who knows? It's the first I've heard of them doing anything wrong. I feel like giving them the benefit of the doubt. But I guess the end result is, or the end comment here is, do your own due diligence. Don't just trust that someone says, oh, Brave protects all your privacy, and then trust it implicitly. Because it's still on you to protect your privacy, regardless of what tools you're using.
Yeah. And that's a big gimmick even when using a VPN. You know, you got to do your due diligence. Make sure that they are not storing information that they should not be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in privacy itself could be a full-time job. So, you know, make sure you trust that person.
Yeah. I like the analogy for using VPN services that you're not necessarily trusting the VPN service to shield all of your information. You're pushing the circle of trust further out than your local area. Because the reason I have a VPN subscription is for when I'm on the road. Is not for when I'm at home and I want to visit some shady website or get onto my bank or whatever else. My bank already uses HTTPS. If you didn't know, that's encryption. It's already encrypted. Now, my ISP may know where I'm visiting because they can probably see they can see the IP address of where I went because they're handling the routing for that. That's how routing works. I don't use Comcast DNS. I use either Google or Cloudflare, depending on what my flavor of the month is. And so they can't look up my DNS lookups and keep a record of that. But if I'm over an encrypted HTTPS signal, as long as everything is going over HTTPS, it's already all encrypted. So I'm really not terribly worried there. What I am worried about is going to a coffee shop and using a public Wi-Fi and possibly logging into my bank there, or logging into my PayPal, or even logging into my email, which, by the way, your phone does about 40 times a day. It sends your credentials over and re-verifies that you're allowed to be using your connection. So even just connecting to a compromised hotspot with a really not sophisticated man-in-the-middle attack using like a Raspberry Pi and a DNS redirect, you can give up your credentials. Or at least give up a cookie or a session handle or something like that that could expose some of your personal data. That's what I use a VPN for. And I don't necessarily trust the VPN inherently either and explicitly. I don't trust the coffee shop, but I trust Nord more, is kind of what it comes down to. And so a lot of the security commercials that you see in a lot of the VPN, adverts that you see on a lot of YouTube videos, some of them do kind of overblow the, your data is important, protect it with blah, blah, blah VPN. It kind of works, but it's also a case by case and a use by use basis. You have to know what you're doing to protect what you're doing. So that's my 2 cents on VPN.
Hey, I'm going to sneak off to use the restroom. I can't hold it anymore.
What's the most interesting thing you've been compensated for due to an affiliate link? That's an interesting one. I once made $10 on a pair of Dachshund shoes. I think it's kind of a lame one, but it was a pretty high commission on that one. Like a $90 pair of shoes, I made $10 on that sale. And there's been a couple instances of that. It's like, I made that on that? I'm trying to think of like weird items, because I don't go through the items list very often. I will when I put up a full list of parts after I've had like a successful video and see how many people have bought parts from that particular video to know if that video was a success on the secondary market or not. Because I do make money directly from YouTube ad sales, and I do make money from Amazon affiliate links, but they're not necessarily related to each other. If people watch a YouTube video, they could click on an affiliate link and go, oh, I was interested in that graphics card, but I happened to buy my groceries while I was on there, and I happened to use your affiliate link that came with the graphics card. But sometimes I'll post a video like the Raspberry Pi Unify install, and all of a sudden I sell 27 Raspberry Pis and a bunch of the UC Electronics power over Ethernet hats and whatnot. I think I've sold like 40 of those since that video went live just a couple of weeks ago. So that's really when I look, is when I put a specific part list out there and I want to know if people are going out and replicating what I have actually done in that video. Because it means, number one, I did the video well, and number two, maybe I should expand on that concept and continue going with that subject. So Jeff wants everyone to buy shoes. Please buy your shoes on Amazon and buy them with my Amazon affiliate link. Oh my God, the commissions are huge on those. By the way, I was probably just demonetized by Amazon for saying that. But yeah, I make like $9 every time you buy a pair of shoes. So please, versus the 36 cents I get when you buy a, network card or something like that. NordVPN, the company which tried to hide a major leak from the customers. You trust these hypocrites. I've talked about this a couple of different times. It wasn't a major leak. Let's be real. It was one server in one data center that had a leak that they couldn't have possibly known about. There's no possible audit that they could do other than a physical visit to that site and an inspection of the physical VM hardware that could have exposed that one. And you need to trust your host providers as well if you're hosting a multifaceted company like NordVPN. And Nord has since adjusted their policies. They didn't disclose the leak because, number one, they didn't know who to disclose it to, because it wasn't a popular server. It wasn't a large leak. It could potentially have exposed customer data, and it was open for a couple of months, but it was such a narrow attack window that the likelihood of it being exposed was slim to nil. And so I'm disappointed they didn't disclose it. But at the same time, they also reacted the proper way that I would expect them to react, which is redoubling up on their policy, making sure that doesn't happen again, and fixing the original problem. And so to call them hypocrites because they had a data breach, I think is a little disingenuous. And I've been a Nord customer for years. I'm still a Nord customer. I don't get a Nord affiliate link. They haven't contacted me. I would sell their product if they did contact me, because I've been a customer of theirs for years. So there you go. That's my rant on Nord and why any security service you sign up for ever will have a data breach at some point, because security companies have to be right every single time. Bad guys have to be right once, and that's all it takes. And so there will be data breaches. There will be exposures. There will be, credentials leaked. It happens. It's part of this wild, wild west of the online that we have. It's how a company reacts that I judge them on. And if you're, what was the Equifax? If you're Equifax, if you're Nord, you get a C-. I wasn't thrilled that you didn't disclose it, but again, the attack window was so narrow, I don't think you had to. So take that for what it's worth. All right. Jeff, you mentioned the idea of still running XP these days. I have an old PC running in the corner running Windows 2000 installed April 2003. I let it run just because it's so old. I don't have any machines that are quite that old. In fact, I think my oldest machine is like 2017, because I do this for a living. So, although, no, that's not true. One of my servers, it was built after that, but it's a refurb motherboard. Both of my dual 2011 servers are refurb servers. So, Jeff, when will we see the virtual gaming server again? I've seen that question come up a couple of times already. You'll see it very, very soon. I'm hoping to get back into that one this week. That's a long, long process of research and testing and development and everything else. Because remember, I'm exploring technology that is 6 to 8 years old and that no one wants us to use anymore. Nvidia, EMC, VMware, that they're not too happy that it was free to use. And so they've all tried to close Pandora's box, and I'm trying to reopen it the best way I can. So it's a difficult subject to explore, and I'm glad you're all digging it. But it's a freaking mind drain. It is so difficult to work on. And I can only reinstall, VMware so many times before I literally start pulling hair out of my head. So sorry, I gotta switch earbuds because my ear's starting to get irritated.
Your little ear's starting to hurt there.
Yeah, a little bit. That's better.
I mean, you do look like a baller with that. Meanwhile, I look like somebody who plays Call of Duty while eating freaking Cool Ranch Doritos in one hand and Code Red Mountain Dew in the other.
That's right. Yeah. XXX 360 read is awesome. 420 swag YOLO. Yeah. XXX.
Yeah. XX 420 Blaze It. XX.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, these are really nice. These are the Sennheiser in-ear monitor IE40s, I believe.
Yeah.
These are phenomenal. I love these headphones.
When it comes to monitors, I'm Sennheiser all the way.
Sennheiser, they're amazing. I've also got a set of Audio-Technica X50s. Those nice. Are my over-the-ear.
Nice.
I got the Bluetooth ones too, so I can go wireless.
Oh, look at me. My name's Jeff. I go Bluetooth.
I don't have any wires on my in-ear monitors.
I don't believe in wires. I am all wireless. Back in my day, back in 2020, COVID was raging. We couldn't afford wires. No?
Not sure how to respond to that one.
I don't know. That's my impersonation of Jeff in 50 years.
Yeah.
Year 2070.
Yeah.
He's going to be telling people why he didn't have wires. They're going to be like, but we have wires now. I'm like, well, yeah, because you know, you have to.
So I was having a conversation with my 7-year-old Miss the other day, and I had to explain to her that we didn't have Wi-Fi when I was a kid. Not even like we didn't have internet. We didn't have Wi-Fi. That blew her mind. And she's like, "Well, how did your tablet get videos?" I said, tablets weren't a thing. Tablets were only a thing in the last 10 years. You know, smartphones have only been a thing really since the iPhone broke it open in 2007. Seven.
It's 2006, dog. I used to do a joke about this stand-up comedy. Because it was 2016.
The original iPhone debuted June 29th, 2007.
Oh, it kills my joke. Because I used to do this joke about because I think it was 2016. I think it was what did they call that? What was the space probe that went past Pluto? New Horizon or something like that?
Yeah.
Anyway, I used to do a joke about like New Horizon or whatever the probe was called that went past Pluto. And I said, you know, they launched this thing in 2006. What was happening in 2006? And so I did like a point by point of things that were happening in 2006. And I remember the iPhone being one of them, but apparently that was wrong. And then the punchline of the joke was because I had confused it for Deepwater Horizon. Mm-hmm. If you guys remember that, the BP oil spill in the Gulf.
Yeah.
And you know, the whole punchline being somebody's telling me about New Horizon, and in my mind it's Deepwater Horizon. And he says, "Well, you heard about that, right?" I said, "Well, yeah. What's going on?" He goes, "Well, they made it to Pluto." And I'm like, "Well, what? They're gonna screw that place up too?" Stupid joke, but always got laughs. And then there was always somebody in the crowd that would say, "Pluto's not a planet."
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "I hate you. She's not wrong."
They've been mining it for plutonium for years.
Now imagine telling your daughter that, you know, Pluto was a planet when I was a kid.
Right. All that deep core plutonium drilling, man, that did us in. Deal.
It's all done. It's all done.
Yep. That should have been a wake-up call.
I freaking love that episode.
That's so good.
Did you watch any of the newest episodes? Not to derail this too much, but have you watched any of the new season?
I've watched the first 5. I haven't watched the second 5 yet.
First of all, dude, the snake episode, so funny. Second of all, some of the last 5 are really good as well. You should watch them.
I've heard the last 5 is pretty good. I was at the snake episode. I liked. It's not in my top 8 of episodes, but it was good. It was funny. I feel this season they went a little bit Family Guy 4th season, a little bit American Dad 8th season, where the characters are no longer characters. They're all kind of the same personality, and they're just vehicles for whatever joke that they wanted to say.
Yeah.
Instead of them all being very unique, they all kind of blended together. And a lot of cartoons make this problem. Futurama had this problem when they rebooted. Seasons 2 through 6, absolutely amazing at Futurama. Season 7, when they come back, no one stays in their lanes. It's whoever happens to be on screen is the one that tells X joke. And they're no longer written for the individual characters. Their characters are written into the jokes. And it's lazier writing. If I want to be blunt about it.
It's interesting because I do still think that season 3 is the best written season.
Mm-hmm.
Just so sharp, nonstop, and you're getting a lot more like diversity out
Turned
of, like,
himself into a pickle. Funniest I've ever seen.
dude, so funny. And you're also getting a lot of mileage out of Beth and Summer.
Yeah.
Whereas that was there in seasons 1 and 2, but not nearly as much.
Right. And like I said, season 3, they really became their own very unique characters and brought very unique aspects to the different shows that they were in. And all of a sudden in season 4, the debut episode, they're sword fighting with umbrellas on an airport tarmac. Like, what in the bloody hell was that?
I don't remember that, but
that was the hey, do you want to develop an app? It was that episode, and Summer goes off the rails and starts dating like any guy she sees on the app.
Yeah,
and they're literally like sword fighting with like an umbrella and a cane on an airport tarmac.
Yeah,
and it's like, who the hell are you people?
Yeah, that episode wasn't that impressive. But it's hard because when you have like the debut of season 3 is probably in the top of all Rick and Morty.
Yes, yeah,
so sharp, so fast, punchy all the way through. Yeah, I will say I went back.
Yeah, good thing I saw that note.
Yeah, so funny, man. And just everything with like Nathan Fillion and stuff at the beginning, so funny. Yeah, season 4 has been interesting because I feel like it has some of the sharpest like satire, I guess, of like real life. But not nearly as, I guess you kind of nailed it, right? It's like each character doesn't quite have their own voice, like you said.
Right. The dragon one was just freaking weird.
I kind of enjoyed that one. I got to admit, but see, I don't know. I was watching that.
Even the snake episode.
The snake episode to me, I did not enjoy it until I watched it a second time.
Yeah.
And the second time I watched it, there's so many like little jokes. And then like the Terminator kind of satire like really made itself more clear, which like I kind of glossed over the first time.
Yeah. But that episode even starts with Morty going, this isn't Morty. It's Morty being a whiny little, going, or no, that was the dragon episode. The whiny, you said I come on the adventure, I get a dragon. I want my dragon. Where's my dragon? I went, where did that come from? Who wrote that? Why did they think that was Morty's character? That's not his character. It was so far off base that things like that throw me out of the story and make the jokes not as punchy.
That's interesting. I guess I'm gonna have to watch season 4 again.
Yeah.
With Jeff's voice in the back of my mind. I don't know how we got here exactly. Because there was something. There's a reason. I guess I was asking if you watched the latest Rick and Morty. I
made a reference to that with Pluto. Pluto's not a planet.
Okay. I took us here. Of course it was me.
It was you.
All right, back on track. We got places to get.
Yep.
We on bleeping computer now?
Yep, bleeping computer. So this has been a story that's also been in the news lately for the security conscious among you, and that is that certain websites are doing port scans when you go to them. Not even like when you log in, but if you go to ebay.com is port scanning you. And the reason they're port scanning you is they're actually looking for malware on your computer, or at least that's the best defense that any of us can think of. Is that they're making sure you're not calling back to a ransomware site, or, you're not VPNing through Indonesia or whatever the case may be, or not to pick on Indonesia, but it's there are some sites that are port scanning you as you visit them. And it's been something that's been cropping up more and more. So a lot of financial websites will port scan you. Not only do they want to know your IP, but they also want to know what services are active on your network, and have you been infiltrated by potential malware? Is this a legitimate transaction, and should I let you log in? This is now part of the authentication handshake. But the interesting thing is uBlock Origin is stepping in and is now going to block port scans as part of its ad blocking software. Um, so, kind of good for the security conscious. Now, I already run uBlock Origin on my Firefox install, mainly for talking heads, so I can display,
Yeah.
random websites, especially the ones that John submits, without all the
Yeah.
political and satire ads on the side.
Yeah. Because now I open them up at home and I'm like, God bless. Adblocker Plus doesn't get some of these dang things.
Yep. uBlock Origin. That's
I know.
where it's at.
I should step up.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on in chat, but I don't think I'll want to know. Google Assistant, you do your own thing.
I can't follow chat because I don't want to risk my bandwidth. So I'm like checking Discord every once in a while. I'm like, still nothing. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I don't think we're quite to the bottom of the port scan aspect of what's kind of been revealed over the last month or two. I know Tom's Hardware did a dive on it recently, but he just went, yeah, they're port scanning you. They're probably looking for this. That's all I can think of.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my explanation as well, is they're looking for, ransomware callback ports being open. They're looking for known malicious traffic being generated. And they're covering their own bases too, because they don't necessarily want to be exposed any more than they want you to be exposed. But yeah, just a new service coming to uBlock Origin. Figured I'd point you guys that way. But don't use it, especially on YouTube, or at least whitelist YouTube, because I need money.
Don't we all?
Yep. I wish I had like a uBlock Origin affiliate code. Like it could cancel out the YouTube ad revenue that I would get from getting people on there by sending people to uBlock Origin. That'd be great.
And we ought to call them up.
I think it's a great idea. I think we should totally call them up.
I'll call them. I'm, in D&D terms, I'm what we like to call the bard. The bard. That's not what I meant to say, but I said it anyway. I meant to say the face. Clearly, Jeff's the face, but that's not true if I say I'm the face. I got charisma. My spellcasting modifier is charisma. I guess I'm the sorcerer or the bard. So take that as you will.
I think you're a bard.
Thank you.
Yeah. You could be my bard any day.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I kind of wanted to shift over to a little bit of gaming talk. And this has been a concept that's been shot around since VR kind of made the scene with Oculus Rift, with even the original DK. With how do you walk in place? How do you crouch? How do you do all these things? How do you make it feel like you're actually in the game and not just pushing a joystick forward to walk forward? How do you make it feel natural? And the biggest thing that a lot of people have come up with is this kind of hybrid treadmill design, where it's not really a treadmill. What it is essentially bowling shoes that are non-slick. It lets you walk friction-free on a surface and feel like you're moving. You can crouch, you can jump, you can do all these kinds of things. And the game interprets that and moves you in the world that you're moving in. I've never seen one done right. I've never seen one with a positive review. I've never seen one that someone said, this is the level of immersion I was missing. Because a lot of the locomotion in VR games, if you look at like Half-Life Alyx gets you 90% of the way there. Fallout 4 gets you 90% of the way there. I don't know that running through the wasteland is going to immerse me that much more. It's probably just going to fog up my headset and piss me off.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest. And not that I don't think there's not a market for this. I know I just said a double negative, but I meant it as a negative. Not that I think there's not a market for this, but I don't know what that market is.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because this is not how I want to play games.
Right. I play games because I'm lazy. I play games because I don't want to go walking.
Right, exactly. And it's interesting, the first time I ever saw something like this implemented was actually quite a while ago. And if you remember on, Tech TV and then later G4, Kevin Pereira hosted a show called Arena, which was a competitive gaming show where you had essentially esports teams facing off each other in some of the most competitive games. And the headline game was like always this VR game that they would play. And literally, I don't remember anything about the game other than the fact that they were on this weird treadmill thing. And it was this weird sort of 360-degree treadmill where they could run and crouch and do all this sort of stuff. But that's all I remember about it. I don't even remember if they had like a VR headset or if they were like had some sort of screens around them or what it was. But that was kind of the big draw of the show. I would rather just watch them all play UTO4, for an hour, but they kind of broke it up to a number of different games.
Yeah. But yeah, I've seen a number of different versions of treadmills and both moving and non-moving. This one's a stationary kind of bowl-shaped thing. And I've never seen one that makes me go, that's what I need. Yeah. That's, that would solve all of my problems. Not only that, but think of how niche of a niche market this is for.
Yeah.
Because only like 5 or 6% of gamers have VR headsets.
Yeah.
It's a growing market, but it's not a big market.
Yeah.
How small of a percentage of VR headset owners are going to double down and spend $1,500 on a locomotion treadmill?
Right.
And is it worth developer support to integrate that into games?
Right.
And how well will that be implemented? Is it going to be worth even playing 2 of your games on this $1,500 treadmill?
And that's kind of the weird thing about the market for this type of stuff is that, like, obviously there are people that will buy it. And that's kind of drives gimmicky tech markets for, years and years now. It's like you could market me 100% as a hardcore vested gamer. This is something I will never buy, ever. You know what I mean? I probably would have never bought a VR headset until I met Jeff and got to use one. And now I'm all on board for that. I still don't have one, mostly because in order to enjoy games the way I want to, I don't necessarily need one. I want one, but a freaking motion-free treadmill, that's something that is so far beyond the scope of what I need to play games the way that I want to.
Right. And
again, I'm a hardcore gamer, I think, by any marketing metric that you could look at. I guess if I won the lottery, maybe I'd waste money on it. But is this something I'm going to budget for? Is this something I'm going to buy? Maybe I'm not the target audience. Clearly, I'm not the target audience, but
well, I think someone like me is the target audience as a VR enthusiast.
And are you going to budget for this?
No.
Right.
No.
And that's the thing. To me, I have a huge problem. Y'all see me say this 100 times now. Every new kind of tech to me is like almost like a gimmick. And it's like
widescreens are a fad, man.
Yeah, dude. I'm still waiting for widescreens to go away. I'm gonna go ahead and adopt for now, but as soon as they go away, the world will be a better place.
Hey, my last build had a 5x4.
Was that right? I saw the video.
My arcade machine.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about?
It had a 5x4 monitor. Yeah. I'm not joking around here.
No, but that's like
I paid $90 for that thing.
Did you really?
I did.
That's a little much, right?
The Middleist 2008 had to offer, and that's what I bought.
Okay.
I wanted one that was flaw free. I wanted one that was perfect.
Gotcha.
So I found one that was 100% refurbished, unmarked, unblemished, pixel perfect.
Nice.
$90. I bought it.
Perfect.
And that's probably the most I've ever spent on one of those monitors, including
Yeah.
when they were new.
Right. Yeah. 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 Widescreen is the funniest thing I've ever said as a gimmick, but I will go on record and say that a motionless or whatever treadmill for VR is also a gimmick.
Yeah.
This is okay. And again, I know that there's obviously a market for this, just as though there is a market for people to buy, $500,000 gold painted rocks or whatever,
People
but
buy those. I can sell those.
right. Yeah, I know. Every time I see people making money doing that shit, I'm
craftcomputingstore.com.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Again, it's like that's never been needed to ship games, and it will continue to never be needed to ship games. I mean, gaming, obviously, nowadays we got the casual gamer, we got the mobile gamer, we got the hardcore gamer, and all this sort of stuff. It's like, but you don't need this to play Angry Birds, which has made more money than the company that makes this treadmill will ever make. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it. I love the idea. It's cool. It's innovative. It's an innovative way to kind of solve the problem that I think like VR kind of tracking and movement and stuff has kind of been after for a couple years now. But I don't know. I just see this as like, I'm gonna go ahead and do a little bit of self-therapy here and say that this is just my spitefulness showing the fact that I will probably not like. It's not even that I can't budget for it. It's like, all right, it's just out of my price range altogether.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I hate it. It's so stupid. And if you buy it, you're stupid too.
I don't necessarily know that I'd go that far.
Because if I am, I'm wrong. I'm trying to put that bit out there.
Right, because I've invested in sim racing hardware before. I've got a Logitech G25 and I spent $180 on a shifter.
Yeah.
I have a Thrustmaster TH8 RS and I love it. It's a 7-speed shifter and whatnot. And I bought a hub adapter and a custom Momo steering wheel for my G25. Like it's all kitted out. I've spent $600-700 on that kit altogether. And then I've also got the sit down racing rig that was sent over by oh gosh.
Oh yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on the name now.
I haven't used that.
Yeah. It was decent. I liked it. I did like it.
They were the same ones that did your...
Yeah, it was the Velocity.
Chairs, right?
Yeah, no, Gamdius is my chairs. They had some Star Trek chairs. They were the guys at CES with the Star Trek stuff.
Velocity, yeah. I remember all this stuff kind of being right in the same spot, which is why I'm thinking of it. But
the same company also had Star Trek chairs and they had the custom board cube PC setup. But anyway, I did like that setup, and that was a $220 setup or something like that. So I do understand there's a market for niche gaming products and whatnot. I've bought expensive peripherals before. Heck, I have the Steel Battalion Xbox mech controller.
And how many times have you used that?
Less than the $150 for the controller was worth. Let's say that.
You are like me, but with the money to buy these things.
You might be accurate.
Again, and I think that's why I was saying I kind of got to go into a little bit of self-therapy mode there, because I think a little bit of my willingness to
Arousey. Thank you, Skull.
My willingness to sort of
paint
this gimmick into a corner is the fact that it's not marketed to me. I mean, it's marketed to my brain, but it's not marketed to my pocketbook,
Right, but even the treadmill and I'm looking at like niche gaming products in particular. And you go back all the way to like the SNES and the Super Scope 6, which was a $90 addition to or $200 console. And you look at the Steel Battalion controller, which was $150 for a game, for one game. You look at, all these weird esoteric peripherals that have come out over the years. There's the Cytec, and then was later purchased by Logitech, but they make a tractor driving simulator controller with like the knobbed steering wheel and different levers and whatnot. They make one of those for people who enjoy the tractor sim games. I'm not going to knock the niche gaming marketplace. That's not the goal of saying this. The goal of saying this is if they're marketing this as a general VR peripheral, which is what I'm seeing it being marketed as.
Right.
Like this is an addition to just an Oculus Rift. And go get this because you can now walk around in your games. It's not what this is. And the software support I don't think is there. And I don't see the software support getting to the level that I feel they're selling this product at. When I buy a sim racing wheel and a shifter, I know there's 6 games I'm going to play in it. And I understand that. And I'm okay spending the $500, $600, $700 because that's something I really enjoy doing. When I buy the Super Scope 6, I understand that it's a $90 game, and I'm okay with that. When I buy the tractor sim wheel, I understand it's $150 to play 2 games. I get that. It's part of the transaction. This is $1,500 and being sold as a universal solution.
Right.
When it's not.
Right.
So I think that's my main counter to this exact peripheral. Like I love these weird esoteric peripherals. I own a number of weird things.
Yeah.
But this one, no.
Yeah.
Especially when Locomotion has come so far. And like I said, most of the games are 90% of the way there to me forgetting I'm even in VR.
Yeah.
A couple of super chats. Big soon, $20. Can I be a mod chat in Discord? No. And then Regan says, damn, $20 can buy you a mod chip? No wonder Rev was able to get it. And then someone said, Rev bought that with hard work and dedication and goodwill. And I said, and whiskey. So, yeah, Big, send me some whiskey and we'll talk.
I mean, when I think about people that were watching Talking Heads and stuff in the very beginning, it's Rev, it's Skull, maybe a couple others, so it's a little bit more than just whiskey, but the whiskey helps. So keep it coming.
The whiskey helps. Right. Yeah. Remember when we talked to like 15 concurrent people?
Yeah.
Today's a down day and we did 214 at peak.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Happy
with that.
I know we're not at the peak anymore, but if you're listening back to this, welcome all. Thank you for watching along.
Well, the peak was only like 10 minutes ago.
Well, I still welcome you all.
Yeah. There's 203 right now. It's not like we fell off. Yeah, no, we've been holding close to 200 since about 9:40. So they like the back half of the show. They like the loaded part of the show.
Right. Yeah. Well, we got one more story to kick off.
Hey, Techno Tim's here. How's it going, Tim?
Well, Techno Tim.
He says keep up the good work.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
I will.
You too with your channel.
I'm gonna go ahead and keep it up. Y'all notice my internet connection is stabilized now, so.
Yeah, you haven't dropped out for a full 30 seconds. It's amazing.
It's been pretty incredible. You know what we can do in 2020.
The internet is not a utility.
I mean, look, it's better than when we were kind of doing some of those early remote shows and I was just like yelling through the pipes and the pulleys.
Yeah. Keeping a string tensioned for 13 miles, that takes some doing.
It was pretty impressive, the kind of lengths that we had to go through to keep that happening.
You had to find just the right tin cans. I mean, you use the Campbell's and you don't get a good connection. You got to go Progresso soup.
Yeah. Campbell's is only good for your carburetor on a Harley Davidson. Yeah. Progresso, they call it tin, but honestly, it may as well be way less aluminum than you think,
Yeah.
you know? So
It's more of a steel
yeah,
composite.
Actually, yeah, for sure. And that's why we were using it in the early days of craft computing.
What do you think about making an audio-only version of Talking Heads? Regan, where have you been? We're now on Spotify and Podcaster and Apple, iTunes,
This has been
Google.
something I was talking about forever, and I'm so glad that you know, that it was taken out of our hands and sort of just done.
Yep.
So super cool. I remember telling Jeff, I was like, this is how easy it is. And I remember secretly trying to do it myself, and I was like, oh, whoops, nope, that ain't gonna work the way that I had sort of originally planned it.
Yep. No, I had you know, thankful for Funky Monk, one of my longtime Patreons. This has been a subject that's come up a number of times over the last 2 or 3 years that I've been doing this show. And it's, can we get an audio only version so I can listen to you in my car or on the road or at my office, or, you know, just headphones when I'm walking around. And I've always thought about doing it, but it's one more step in the process and I've just never done it. And Funky Monk said, hell, I'll do it.
Good.
And so he found me a service that was free to host, and not only free to host, but also monetized, and will also get me onto like every major platform.
Yeah.
And versus if I went like direct to Google, it's like $12 a month. And it's like, I don't know that I want to pay $12 a month to do an audio only version.
No,
like, I don't know that that's like, it's not a lot of money, you know, and it's another avenue that people could listen to me to, but what am I getting out of that? You know, I'm trying to spend my money wisely as a business. And so we found Anchor.fm, which is free to host and will also redistribute my podcast to all of the services that are otherwise paid services to host your podcast on.
Yeah,
so
that's the thing, is like any service worth their salt is going to redistribute you.
Right.
You know, it's like I self-host and I still use services that redistribute me for free.
Right.
Because anybody doesn't know, I do podcasting outside of this.
Yes.
And you know,
that's why he has a crappy video camera, but really good audio.
I had a great video camera the first remote shows that we did, and now it's broken. But you're right, I am a complete audio guy.
Sensitive.
Yeah, I'm very sensitive about it, Jeff. But I'm a complete audio guy. I do music studio stuff. I do podcasting stuff.
You're gonna want to play that part back in the podcast, because you broke up literally when you said I'm an audio guy.
Damn it!
I'm a guy.
It's all coming together.
That's
the way.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's
So
something. Good. I think it's just karma. I've been a bad person on Twitter this week.
Yeah.
But yeah, so kudos to Funky Monk for doing that. I mean, that's really cool. I've always thought Talking Heads would be a really good audio format. What else I've always thought, and maybe this is something that we could look at doing, I always thought there was something we could sort of condense some of the Talking Heads segments into a Alexa, what do they call those things?
Like an audio short.
Yeah, like the I guess like the news flash or whatever, the flash, whatever they're called.
Oh, flash alerts.
And maybe not flash alerts. There's like, but it's like, yeah, something. Like I can tell Alexa in the morning. This is the worst because I don't remember the exact thing I say to Alexa in the morning. I say, play my whatever, and she goes through and she plays like condensed like news stories for me. That all these like. My podcast has one, and it's actually not our podcast, it's a couple of other things we do, like weekly tips or whatever. But I always thought that craft computing could take like a little segment or maybe condense something and have just as good of a freaking flash briefing. That's what it's called, a flash briefing. And you can say, Alexa, play my flash briefing. And it goes through all of these skills. And, you know, lots of different news outlets have Alexa skills. So I've got like Reuters. I've got, there's a couple tech ones that are on there. I can't remember what the exact outlet is. I think, I'm going to butcher it. But, you know, I got my BBC, I got my NPR, Reuters, and a couple other tech ones. And then I've got Game Dev's Quest and things like that. And there's some other entertainment ones. Like I think like Wizards of the Coast has one for like D&D and Magic the Gathering stuff and all this. It's like, and you just sit there and it plays through it in order. So I can do my morning chores, make my coffee, do my dishes, make breakfast and all that sort of stuff. And it's just feeding me stuff. And I always thought, man, wouldn't it be great to have craft computing? And it's like, hey guys, welcome to Craft Computing this week. Blah, 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 blah. We're talking about this in the news and blah, 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 blah. And this was in the news. And anyway, have a great day. And it's, 3 minutes.
Yeah. That might be something I could record, It might be
Right?
kind of fun. Maybe I'll put it on to you. Maybe you could record it for me.
Yeah, why not? I could probably handle it. We just got to figure out, I got to go through because the Game Devs Quest one was done like 3 years ago now. I got to figure out how I got that on Alexa. Yeah. And I'd be willing to do something like that. Just condense talking heads if we got a couple talking points and throw it up.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Tyler, $2.99 donation. Stop saying Alexa, LOL.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're turning on everyone's Alexas.
my Alexa onward is computer, so that I can feel like I'm on the Enterprise. So
yes,
you can change it. But then when you're saying like, "Hey, can you hand me the computer?" It's like, I don't understand you. I'm like, shit.
Alexa, it's like the clapper when the clapper commercials came on.
Oh God!
Clap on. God damn.
Did people actually have the clapper?
I don't personally know anyone who owned one.
I see them sometimes. Like I used to, in the small town I lived in, I would go to the like pharmacy and go through like the as seen on TV aisle. That was a freaking real aisle they had. It was my favorite aisle. It had the craziest, wackiest stuff that you never needed. And it was like, had one purpose, it was like, here's the perfect egg soft boiler or like whatever, and they always had clappers there. And I thought, man, I would love to get this, but like, I do so many things that could be construed as clapping. I don't want my stuff turning on and off,
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we finish our last news story? We did.
The last news story is tomorrow. Sony will be having their PS5 event. So apparently 1 week is enough time for the world to change and be ready for gaming news. So it was supposed to be on June 4th. They've delayed it a full 7 days, and now it's going to be on June 11th.
Yeah.
PS5, the future of gaming, and SSD tech unlike any other.
Yeah. I'm excited to see this. I will say, to your sort of sarcastic criticism, it's a week isn't long enough, but it's longer than most have given.
Right.
That's
very true. It's very true. I do appreciate. I don't want to come off as snide or anything like that. I do appreciate Sony postponing.
It's okay to come off as snide because it's not long enough. The world hasn't changed. We're in the same place we were 13 days ago.
It's kind of what I wanted to say. Right.
But
we are the
but they've given more. Oh God, I know, right? But they gave more than anybody expected them to, than anybody else has. I mean, it's like, okay, you earned your right to have your conference about this freaking product. I mean, the sad reality is that life does go on, regardless of anything else. And we have a couple things going on in the United States. Sony's market is bigger than the United States.
Yes.
That there are people that are standing in solidarity with the United States, but the market is bigger than those standing in solidarity with the United States.
Yep.
So I got to give them props. I wish they would go longer, but the iron was hot. They struck it. What else is there to do? So. And now Jeff's furiously typing. I wonder what he's typing. Is he typing a comment?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Somebody's like, why are you talking about real life? Real life doesn't happen on Talking Heads. I don't come on here. I come on here to get my old tech news. You ever heard of that technology news? The new broadcast about the old ones and the zeros and the silicone and all that.
Back before we had these quantum computers.
Yeah. Won't that be a wild thing? Dude, I keep thinking of this as like a new father. I'm like, I love thinking about things that are completely obsolete. You know, I've got nieces and nephews that are like 10, 12 years old now.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, my oldest niece, she remembers like pushing VHS like into the VCR in the morning to like watch movies when their parents slept in, all
And
that
they
sort
were
of stuff.
old then.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I mean, that was like a TV with a built-in VCR that like wasn't ready to quit.
Right.
But her sister,
Flat screens weren't quite affordable for every room yet, so we still had that old Emerson VHS 19-inch combo.
it was the same CRT that I was playing Morrowind on my Xbox, you know, like, I mean, I'm not kidding you. And it had a freaking sweet, like the reason I use it is because it had a headphone output, and my brother would be playing.
I think
like
I had the same TV.
Games. Dude, it was legit. It was legit. My
Yeah.
brother would be playing computer, but I wanted to play like whatever. So, but I couldn't play Morrowind on the computer, so I'd be playing Morrowind on my Xbox, which I bought twice, and because one was the Platinum Edition, the other was the Game of the Year edition, and I got to get those. Oh my God! Now they call them DLC. Back then they called them expansions. Isn't that weird?
Well, no, back then they sold you a whole game and then you got expansions. Now we get half the game and then we get day one DLC.
Yeah. That's pretty much when I gave up on being like first in line for games, was when it became like, well, if you pre-order, you get this item and this item. And I was like, what? No, that's not what games are.
Yeah.
And to this day, that's not what games are to me. I try not to buy into the DLC hype or cosmetic item hype or anything. It's like, look, I get it. You know, I played Dota for 5 years, Dota 2, and I would buy cosmetics. I'd play CSGO, I'd buy cosmetics, but I'm always buying on like the secondhand marketplace. I wasn't buying like direct brand new shit. You know, I was buying secondhand, what was overly popular and what was cheap. And I would sell rare items that I had, get a couple bucks, and then buy a bunch of cosmetics that I liked and things like that. And it was fun. It's a fun way to play CSGO. It's a fun way to play Dota 2 and all these sorts of things. Fun way to play Team Fortress 2. But like, man, you get on that DLC hype and they're like, well, you get this special in-game armor and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I watch my friend play Mass Effect 2. He never changes his armor. Meanwhile, me, I'm constantly got that like Diablo 2 armor upgrade bug going on. I'm just like, yes, I got this new armor.
None of these match, but this has better specs.
Exactly, you know. And that's what it was for me. And I just remember thinking like, man, what, you get what for pre-ordering? You get what for waiting in line at midnight? This is garbage. I ain't a part of that.
Wait, I bought from GameStop, not Best Buy. Why did they get the RPG and I get like a sniper rifle?
Yeah. How gross, right? Like how boring.
What the crap?
How boring, you know? I remember my
just
friend
wait 6 months, get the Game of the Year edition and get it all.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I bought basic Morrowind. And when I realized that there was like some expansions I wanted to play, I bought the Game of the Year edition for the same price that I bought the Platinum edition. And
the great one was if you pre-ordered various versions of Call of Duty, you got the option to buy bonus maps a month earlier than other players.
How boring. How basic.
Not even like you got them for free. You got the option to buy earlier.
That sums up Call of Duty fans.
Yeah.
In general. And I don't mean that as, here's the thing, you know, I remember going to my first LAN party. I remember going to my first like real LAN party.
Yeah.
Like when I say real, I mean like PDX LAN type of thing, right? Like there was a LAN in Salem and it was called Prodigy LAN. That's what it was called. Maybe I should send some pictures. I think they're on my Facebook or maybe my old MySpace or something like that. But it's called Prodigy Land. And it was a big event and they'd rent into space and they'd sell spots and they'd have corporate sponsors and prizes and things like this. And then you'd go in and then people would just play games. But then they'd also have events and they had like Counter-Strike Source events and they had like Quake 3 events and UTO4 events. They also had Call of Duty 2 events. And I remember like, dude, Call of Duty 2 was the shit. What a great game.
Yeah.
What a great game. And that was like, man, Call of Duty was legit. Now I kind of passed over Call of Duty 3, you know. It's like I remember on X-Play and all this on G4 or Tech TV or whatever it was at the time. It's like, well, the World War II tropes overplayed. And then of course you get Call of Duty 4, which is like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Not only was the single player campaign like revitalizing
Like,
and
legit
good,
right?
multiplayer was good. Well, they haven't changed their formula, as far as I'm aware. I haven't played a single damn Call of Duty game since Call of Duty 4 because, like, how many damn Call of Duties can you come out with in that amount of time? You know?
Well, they're starting to remaster, so they have 4 remastered now.
Oh,
I
good.
don't know if you knew that.
I'm glad that's happening because it needed to.
Right.
I'm happy to play Quake 3.
I can't stand looking at those 2012 graphics. I mean, that's just awful.
Right. That's the thing, dude. I got some of my friends, like when COVID hit, it's like, yo, we should get some games together like we used to do for LAN parties. And we got Quake 3, we got UTO4 going. We got UTO4 going with the Carball mods, dude. Did you ever play Carball?
Didn't play Carball.
Because Carball eventually became Rocket League. Like, and now you got Rocket League and all this stuff, but we played Carball. And it was UTO4, but your character was a car, and there were power-ups like rockets so you could shoot and like hit the ball, and there's boosters and all this sort of stuff. Dude, it's Rocket League, but UTO4 mod.
See, back in my day, it was Jedi or
Jedi Academy or whatever.
Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight.
Jedi Knight.
And you played with Masashi.net mods, which, by the way, Masashi.net still exists. It's still live. You can still download the mods today. But there were like some modern weapon total conversion kits that you could buy. And so you're playing a Star Wars universe with a lightsaber and an AK-47.
Yeah.
And so that's what we that's what we jammed on.
Yeah.
Back when it was dial up to 8-player servers, and
that's legit. That's legit. Hey, speaking of mods and all this sort of stuff in old games, I wanted to break the story a couple weeks ago, but I didn't get to be on Talking Heads, and I meant to talk about it last week. But anyway, Morrowind still dropping new mods. Game's almost, I think the game's 19 years old.
Something like that.
It's 18 years old.
I want to say 2002. Are you going to say
2002 feels right.
Because you want to be wrong again?
Yeah, I do, but I'm willing. I think 2002 because it came out the same year as Gothic 2, which I'm pretty sure Gothic 2 came out in 2002. So
2002. Nailed it.
Well done.
By the way, again, you have all of the knowledge of humanity at your fingertips. Use it. Don't be wrong. There's no excuse.
You're talking to the audience, right? Because I was close, and I said you're probably right.
I'm talking to everyone.
Okay,
you included.
All right. Hey, you're right. I should have known better. I should have known better.
Yeah.
Plus, I talk about Morrowind all the damn time. But yeah, 2002. So it's I think it's 18 years old. And they're still dropping mods. And in fact, I think it was like 3-4 weeks ago at most. Morrowind Rebirth dropped one of its biggest updates ever. And if you guys haven't played the Rebirth mod of Morrowind, man, plug that in. It is not very compatible with like the Morrowind graphics overhaul mods and things like that, which you can find on Nexus mods, but mainly because the fauna kind of overhaul that's in the graphics overhaul that makes plants look amazing and things like that. Because I think they're scripted to where like the texture map is and things for the terrain. And the Rebirth mod changes the terrain map. So where you might have had a hill that kind of dipped and then went up here, now in the Rebirth mod, it goes up and then it dips afterwards. So it changes the terrain overall. And so the fauna mod of the overhaul is you're trying to go and all of a sudden there's plants in the middle of the air or there's plants underneath sticking through, and it's kind of confusing. I've done it that way. I've played it. It doesn't break the game, but something to be on the lookout for. I mean, if you're playing Rebirth, maybe you're not as interested in the graphical overhauls as others. You're just interested in kind of the gameplay add-ons and things like that. But man, like the additions that they added to the latest Rebirth, it's so big, man. It's so cool, and I love that Morrowind still has a modding community that's that passionate, that is that involved. You can find that on Nexus Mods if anybody plays Morrowind. I know Fractal Andrew will probably watch this in the future if he's not, and he'll be like, Morrowind, why don't you shut up about Morrowind? And then we're going to talk about the Phantom Menace.
No. Remember, he didn't want to be Fractal Andrew. He just wants to be plain Andrew.
Oh, just plain Andrew.
Just plain Andrew. Yeah,
okay.
Not Fractal Andrew.
Okay.
He's not going to be Fractal Andrew.
Okay. All right. Well, then Andrew.
There's Fractal Josh, and then there's just Andrew.
All
so
right.
See, I'm respecting your wishes, Andrew.
I don't remember that, but I'll respect it nonetheless. So Andrew, Morrowind's the shit, dude, and so is the Phantom Menace. Come at me. What are you gonna do about it? Anyway, Rebirth mod, it's on Nexus Mods and all that sort of stuff. Man, it adds cities, it adds Imperial bases, it adds dungeons, it adds items, it adds quest lines. I mean, this is an overhaul mod. And you can play it sort of vanilla graphics and things like that. I don't mind the graphics of Morrowind and all that. There's some extra mods you can add on top of it if you want, but I think Rebirth as a standalone will revitalize Morrowind if you haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I might give it another playthrough.
Dude, I play it all the time, and it's like my biggest live stream on Twitch ever was playing Morrowind. I had like 2,000 people watching at one time.
Nice.
And it's because there's my most successful podcast to date, I released 10 episodes of, and to date, it still outstrips Game Dev's Quest, which puts out episodes. It outstrips my D&D podcast.
Isn't that frustrating?
It's frustrating, but it's like, of course it would.
Yeah.
Like, how can you have a hyper niche show and not have it outperform something so general as game development or whatever, or D&D? When we started the D&D podcast, there was a few D&D podcasts. Now there's 1,000 D&D podcasts. So it's like, obviously you're not going to outperform, but how many Morrowind podcasts are there? There's not many. There's a couple Elder Scrolls YouTube shows.
It's 18 years old.
Yeah, but it's the best Elder Scrolls, dog. Look, I love Oblivion. I love Skyrim. Something about Morrowind that is just that much better.
My problem is, take this with a grain of salt and don't attack me.
No, okay? I won't attack you, man. You're welcome to whatever you want to think. We've had this conversation 100 times.
We've had this conversation. My problem is Morrowind doesn't play like a modern RPG. It plays like a 90s RPG. And that's part of the charm of it.
Yeah.
But also the control scheme is just kind of whack.
Yeah.
And you can change the control scheme. And I know the physics in Morrowind are a little questionable, but they're questionable in every single Elder Scrolls game because they use the same base engine for everything, just like Fallout, just like whatever. But there's something about Morrowind that feels a little bit more janky than some other games that I try to play.
100%.
And it's a great game. I don't diminish the game, but going back and trying to replay it, it feels jank.
Did you ever play the Gothic games, Gothic 1 and 2?
I think I did way back in the day because I played Black and White. I played the Gothic games. I played Morrowind.
Yeah.
Go through like all those different RPGs. Yeah.
Gothic was one of those wild ones where it's like you don't need a mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're navigating using the directional pads, and then like the action button was like hold control, and then you press directional arrows to do sort of stuff. It's so janky. It's so wild.
Mm-hmm.
Still to this day, one of my favorite games. I remember like a couple years ago there was a snowstorm. And I thought, oh my God, they're selling this thing on Steam. It's on sale. I bought it. I installed it. I played it on my laptop. I remember being like, I have my in-laws. The house is snowed in. Cars ain't going anywhere. I'm just playing Gothic. And it was so amazing. It was so fun. And that's the same thing with Morrowind. It's like, yes, it is dated. The control scheme is dated. If you have the ability, change the controls.
Yeah.
If you have the ability, the Morrowind overhaul patch, it's called the Morrowind Code Patch, MCP. It changes some of the like code bugs in the game to make it more enjoyable. One of the things was people complain about how much cliff racers attack them. You know, these flying creatures coming down. And
Yeah, you'll be walking through a valley, and all of a sudden,
yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
The reason being is because they put a decimal point in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And so instead of having,
it's the Gandhi nuclear strike all over again.
right? Yeah, exactly. And so it's like, instead of having like a 10 in this like variable position in their code, they had 100.
Yeah.
And which just increases the sheer amount of, but what's fun is they folded it into their lore. So you play Skyrim and you go into the, what do they call it? The Soul Cairn in Skyrim. You meet Saint Geob and you're like, who is this guy? Saint Geob. This is wild. Geob is the first character you meet in Morrowind. You never meet him again. He was on the ship before you leave and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And apparently in the lore, they folded in. It's like he freed himself on Morrowind and goes and vanquishes all. He just kills all of the cliff racers. And that was lore that was involved in Skyrim. So it's like this weird code error that they had became lore in Elder Scrolls, you know, years later. But yeah, Morrowind's janky, it's buggy, it's weird. You say it reminds you of a 90s RPG, and that's because it like literally Elder Scrolls was supposed to be a coded, developed port of their homebrew D&D system
right.
they were playing. And that's why it's so weird. That's why you're swinging your sword and you're like, I'm hitting this guy, but why aren't I hitting him? It looks like I'm hitting him and all this. And that's because
you're rolling
off-screen,
threes.
Yeah, right. And there's off-screen dice rolls happening. And so when you understand the mechanics that are happening off-screen that you can't see, it makes the game more bearable in the sense that, okay, well, if that's okay, I can do this. And then all of a sudden it changes your perception of what you do. And all of a sudden it's like you get to the point where, and I say this, like, if you get to the point where you can start exploiting the game without looking up the game, without looking up the exploits, it makes it that much more enjoyable because suddenly you've realized how to earn God status. And you've done it on your own. And I will guarantee you, if you haven't played Morrowind, it is possible to figure out how to exploit the game without looking it up. And I encourage you to do so. It doesn't detract from the game at all. It's not like going into GTA 3 and typing in blah, 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 God mode, which does ruin the game.
No, it's jumping for every single movement that you do, and within about 30 minutes, your acrobatics are at level 200, and you can literally jump over buildings.
Right. You take off all your heavy armor, or you drop all your items, and all of a sudden, woof, you jump, and you're just jumping over cities.
Yeah.
And that's something that you learned on your own.
Oh, sorry. Fast travel.
Right. Well, yeah, man. Don't even get me. So I just love Morrowind. You know, it's like in a world where we sort of like put too much emphasis on like the typical Western European like fantasy world, like Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones or whatever have you. Like Oblivion and Skyrim fall well into that. You know, and I remember playing Skyrim. I was like, man, I love the setting and all this. And my friend goes, yeah, but it's the same as everything else. It's the same fantasy setting. I was like, what? Okay, yeah, you got dragons and you got castles.
Yeah,
it doesn't get more stereotypical than that. The only difference is you got snow, and same thing kind of with Oblivion. You know.
Oh, and we have elves and orcs and dwarves and
exactly. And you got kind of the same thing with Oblivion, which I was like, oh yeah, of course you do. Morrowind, man, you got this weird caste system. You're at the bottom. No, you're not the Dovahkiin. No, man, you're not the freaking hero of Kavach. You're this,
and also the mage wizard from, you know, from the Winterfell,
right?
You know, Academy, and also the Prince of the Thieves Guild,
right? Exactly, man. In Morrowind, you can work yourself up to kind of some of those things, but like you are an outsider through and through. And everybody that lives on the island of Vardenfell, they treat you like you do not belong. They use racist slurs against you. You live in a land where there are mushrooms that grow taller than buildings, and there are wizards that decided that they're going to live in these mushrooms. And there's people that decided that they're going to live in these weird caves near this blighted region of this volcano and all this sort of stuff, man. It is the most alien and most exotic fantasy world I've ever played a game in, and that's why I go back. And when you got people putting work into Rebirth, that is why I go back, because it is alien and it's foreign, it's unique, it's intoxicating. It is not dragons and castles and dungeons. It's more.
And on that note, I think that's going to be our time for the night. May your travels bring you warm sands. This has been Talking Heads, episode 136, every Wednesday night here at 8 p.m. Pacific time for the latest in beer and tech news. Check me out on Twitter at Craft Computing. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Drop me a like in this video. Look me up on Spotify, iTunes, Podcaster, Google Podcasts. The list goes on audio format. Go and jump over to Rhett's stuff, GameDevsQuest.com, and look Rhett up at GameDevsQuest on Twitter. Also, Rhett is awesome on Twitter. And I think that's about it. Anything else, Rhett? Got anything to plug?
Nothing to plug. I will say one thing. You heard me talk about my D&D podcast. That is at chaoticamateurs.com. No, it is not a porn site. That is a D&D podcast website. Check me out there because that is active. That is doing episodes every week. Game Devs Quest, we're a very passionate community, but we're figuring ourselves out kind of at the moment. We've been going on for 3+ years, but we're kind of in the middle of like a restructuring phase. So check out Game Devs Quest for sure. Join us on Twitter, join us on Discord, join us on our website, gamedevsquest.com, but check out my D&D stuff too, if you like RPGs.
Awesome. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description below. Minimum $1 donation gets you access to my exclusive Discord server. When I say exclusive, I mean there's no riffraff on there. It's if you pay $1, you get in. And what you get for your $1 is ownership of the Discord server. That is, you make the community. And by that, I don't mean you make the community. I mean, you get to join the community with me.
Yeah. And,
and it's an awesome community.
Yeah. As somebody who's got kind of like 2 distinct Discord communities aside from Craft Computing, Craft is the best. So pay your $1, get in there. Join us. No, I'm not even being polite. I got one Patreon only. I've got one open to the public. And there's something about the craft community, the people that have chosen to vest themselves into it, the people that are continually returning and helping others and all this sort of stuff. Man, it is the best Discord community that I am personally a part of, and I'm a part of a lot. So
yep. And I can second that, but I'm a little biased. But yeah,
he is biased.
Check out the Patreon down in the video description. Think about joining it. You're literally helping me keep the lights on around here and helping content come back directly to you. And if you at me, I'll respond. And I'm constantly in there. I'm in Discord pretty much every single day. I usually try to take about 1 day a week where I'm not on social media, but I'm in Discord 6 days a week pretty regularly. And so is John and Steve both. And then Rhett jumps in from time to time as well.
I'm
when
the
he's not
least
doing
active.
And when he's not doing his 7 other things that he does.
Yeah. That being said, I will say whenever I get on the Discord, it always shows me Craft Computing is typing this to whoever. I'm like, oh my God, he's always on.
He's still awake. Yeah.
He's still awake, or he's already awake, or yeah, I mean, take your pick, man. Come join our Discord.
Yeah, I'm up at pretty much 6:30 every day because my dog decides that's when I get up. So I get up, have a cup of coffee, and for the last 3 months I've been home, so it's not like I have to drive to work or do anything like that. So,
well, here's to many more days at home. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah. Hopefully, eventually.
This is showing that people can work from home. So,
hopefully, we all get to do it someday. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this episode, and as always, we'll see you next week. Cheers, all.
Take care.